Opening merchant interface. Scanning trade routes. Scanning for cargo destinations within jump range. Cargo shipment available. 12 tons of classic aircraft hood ornament replicas and 16 tons of disposable light sticks. Destined for the Anther system in core sector. Contacting Christopher Griffen of Mongoose Publishing. Stand by.
Hello everybody, today my guest is Christopher Griffen, one of the lead writers at Mongoose Publishing. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Frank. Thank you for having me once again.
Thanks for returning. It's nice to have you back. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you and what do you do and how are you related to Traveler?
All right. I am a person who lives in California in the United States and grew up picked up on role-playing games in pre-adolescence. Have followed them for many years along with other types of fandom. At some point, I thought, you know what? You could write these things. Found my way, created a path for myself to be a role-playing games materials author, and contacted Mongoose and became one of their freelancers. And I'm happy to say it's been a lot of fun, and I look forward to. I'm proud of all the projects I've done, and I'm looking forward to doing a lot more for them.
Let's talk a little bit about what inspired you to get into gaming and how your passion for the hobby led you to where you are today.
Just a natural love of narrative got me into gaming. I think very early on as a kid, I got into things like comic books and reading, and I always gravitated towards fantasy and sci-fi. And when I was introduced to my first role-playing game, which like most people was Dungeons and Dragons, it just took me by storm. Wow, this is great. I'm already off in my head all the time and in my imagination. This enables me to form that into a little avatar, your character, and live in your imagination in this fantasy world. And since we're talking late 70s, early 80s here, things like Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica, and I guess other 2001: A Space Odyssey, Planet of the Apes, all these things that were part of sci-fi fandom at that time. Those space opera and other sci-fi always appealed to me more than high fantasy. I just would sort of, while playing D&D, was thinking, man, I sure wish this existed for science fiction. As one of the things we had back in the 70s and 80s, which I'm sure you also have fond memories of, Frank, were hobby stores. And you don't see this too often anymore, hobby and gaming stores. And I went to one and just kind of casually perusing the product, stumbled upon the little box set, the black box for Traveler, and I immediately knew. It was like love at first sight. I said, "This is the one," and jumped right in. That's pretty much describes my start into role playing and finding my way to sci-fi gaming.
So, how did you end up getting involved with Mongoose? What motivated you to join Mongoose, and can you share your story about how you got involved?
I dropped out of gaming for a long time when raising a family and developing a career in Silicon Valley, and but when we used to play, I think the last game we had played, me and my friend, my social group, was in the 90s. We probably played Traveler: The New Era, and there was, as once your kids start growing up and you have a little more luxury time, I was talking with my old buddies and I said, you know what, we should play Traveler again. And one of my friends said, it's about time. And so I took a look at what was out there, and I stumbled into, now mind you, Mongoose version 2, or Mongoose Traveler version 2, or second edition, had already come out, but I stumbled into number 1 first. Some of those books sort of imitated the old classic Traveler motif more, black covers with simple text on them. And then I quickly found, it looks like they've created a new, more graphical version with higher quality illustrations and paintings and more of a devotion to creating art. So then we stumbled into that and jumped right back in 2016 or so, right shortly after they released the second edition. and I saw that Pirates of Drinax was coming out, and we kind of got right back into it, and it was easy to do because Mongoose has so faithfully um, created a version. I think it's very faithful to Classic Traveler and Mega Traveler, but takes it a step further with its task system and some more slightly detailed mechanics, but with a respect for the simplicity that was what made Traveler so appealing in the first place.
Yeah, that's something I appreciate about the Mongoose edition is it really does have the heart of Classic Traveler.
Yeah, yeah, the 2 dice 6, and that's, I think it's a framework it's that you can use, but it's kind of designed to get out of the way when you just want to do some pure role playing, or you don't have to roll dice at all to run a session of Traveler.
So how'd you end up getting involved with Mongoose?
Right. So I am my career has been in the field of technical writing, and I have also been a person who's always been interested in art. I've done some illustration. I never developed my art as well as I might have liked to, but uh, and I sort of have a sense for building a publication thanks to my job. And I saw that Mongoose, when perusing their forum, saw that they had a thing called the Task program that and gave you some tools to make your own materials. And by this time, I'd also discovered Drive-Through RPG, which I'm sure everyone knows about, and that you can. When I found out that you can sell your own products using some of the basic Traveler graphics and materials, I was like, I'm in, man. I'm going to do this. I already have kind of skills for organizing a publication. I can do this. And so I took some of the adventures that I was writing for my group and made them into published adventures using those task materials. And then I remember the thing that really spurred me to wanting to work for them. I saw one of Matt's State of the Mongoose releases. If you're not familiar with this, every year Matt Sprange, the EIC at Mongoose, puts out a big post that describes how the company's doing, how his employees are doing, and what they released and how it did, and what's coming up. And on that what's coming up list, like, I don't know, 8 years ago, was the Glorious Empire. I think someone perhaps had committed to doing it, or it was the apple of Matt's eye, or just one of many projects that he talked about putting out. And I had already I had dived into Mongoose's main setting, which is Trojan Reach sector, and I had seen the Glorious Empire. It's a little splinter state in the Aslan Hierate, and I studied up on it and thought, wow, that sounds like an exciting place to role play, because it's a complete dystopian disaster. And I sure wish I could write that book instead of someone else. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to see if I can be that person. And so I tried to create the best drive-through RPG adventure I could to really show my stuff. And I created an adventure called Maker God, which deals with artificial intelligence and a world called Oma in the Trojan Reach, and it can easily be slotted into a Pirates of Drinax campaign if you so desire. And so I threw some graphics together. I hired Ian Stead to create the cover for me, and with an illustration of the starship that's featured in the adventure, and it did really well. And in fact, it still does well, which is, I'm pretty proud of that. I put that adventure out. It must have been 5 years ago, and it's still a very high seller for Traveler. And after it did well, I gave it 2 months of doing well, and I reached out to Matt in email or on the forums or something, and said, "Hey, my task adventure is doing great. I think you should hire me to work on your main line, and I would like to write Glorious Empire." Not presumptuous at all.
No, not
right?
at all.
And I thought, well, he could ignore me. He could write back and say, "Now we've got all the talent we want," or he could take me up on it. And I knew that at the time Martin was by far the main writer, and I thought, yeah, they need another voice. So hopefully Matt's into this idea. And he was, and he said, absolutely. But before you take on something that big, I think they kind of want to see, can you even can you even write something smaller? Because it, it's, I think it's really easy for people to get optimistic about wanting to create a publication, but it's a difficult undertaking, as you well know, Frank. You
Yes.
produce quite a few materials. So I wrote an adventure called Exodus for them, and he was happy with it. So, and then they needed a few naval adventures because the Element class cruisers set had just come out, which features naval campaigns for Traveler. And so I wrote a couple of naval adventures for him. And then Matt said, "All right, you've shown your stuff. You can do this. Write Glorious Empire for us." And I took it on, and then that's where that reality kicked in. Glorious Empire is like it's a hardcover book, right? It's huge, and it was difficult to write something that big. I'd never written anything that big before. It's basically, if you did the word count, it's the size of a novel, and it took me a long time, and I hadn't developed the skills to handle a project like that and balancing it with my day job and that sort of thing. But got it done, and real proud of how it came out. And ever since that, Matt has kind of turned to me with projects, and I've had one after another since then. That based on what they need and what I pitch to them.
That's a great story. So you were involved in rewriting High Guard, is that right?
Yes, one of my more recent projects was to redo High Guard, and that one initially it was that Matt reached out to the group of writers that he has and said, "I'd like to expand crew roles, descriptions of what it is to be a pilot, an astrogator, an engineer, etc." And I said, I'd like to do that. And so I volunteered and started working on that. And then and he had been already doing these updates of the core books by this time. The core rulebook had a 2021 or 2022 edition. I think it was 2022. And wanted to do it for High Guard as well. So eventually, since I had volunteered for that, he eventually came back and said, "Chris, how about you just do the whole thing?" And I had some trepidation about that. I see myself as a story guy, not a mechanics guy. So going into something like High Guard was a little intimidating for me, and especially since I knew you're like looking at your crystal ball at the future when this book is out, and I know how my fellow Traveler fans are. We are there are a lot of very precise people who will pay very close attention to what you put out, and if there's any kind of an error or an exploit, you're going to get raked over the coals for it. And I was kind of cowering in the corner thinking, "Oh my God, they're going to rip me to shreds with this thing." But luckily, I did put together a good team of people to help work on the book with me. You'll see their names as assistant naval architects on the table of contents page of High Guard 2022. And we worked through it all, and I got a lot of great advice from them and a lot of collaboration. And it was a stressful book to create because of the fine attention to detail that you have to apply. But I'm pretty proud of how it came out, and we did not we took some risks in it too, some big mechanical changes to make things work in a way that we felt starships should work that perhaps had been somewhat overlooked in the past.
What unique mechanics or gameplay elements did you introduce to to Traveler with this book?
So I guess there were many, but the main thing is that you'll note that capital ships don't work particularly well with the same rules that have been set up for smaller ships. Traveler is mostly a game of smaller ships, right? The game, you're usually in a scout ship or a free trader or a far trader. You might be in a mercenary cruiser or a lab ship, something like that. But once you start getting to the multi-thousand ton ships, they're more there for window dressing to kind of as part of the backdrop. But we redesigned the mechanics so you can now run a pretty good combat session with those capital ships. And part of that was beefing up armor. We added a military ships option so that you could massively armor your big ships. The thinking behind that was the way the mechanics stood, you could pretty much knock down a capital ship with a much smaller ship, or even squadrons of fighters. And You can still do that, but it's really hard now. Capital ships punch hard now. And part of the way we did that, also, I mentioned the armor. The other thing is we added damage multiples for different weapon types to try and create a more linear scale from the various weapon types. All Traveler fans know the weapon types that ships can be installed with. There's, if you have a really small ship, you have a fixed mount weapon that points in one direction, and you got to point the ship that way to shoot it. Then you got turrets that can shoot in any direction. Then you got barbettes, which are basically big turrets. And then you got bay. You have 3 different bay weapon sizes: small, medium, and large bays. And then you have your spinal mount. And it was kind of like this huge gap between turrets and barbettes, and then boom, all the way to bays. There's with very little space in between. So we use damage multiples, which I don't want to get into the details of it, but you basically figure out your damage, subtract armor, and then multiply by a set multiple. And it's not as complicated as it sounds, but it makes it so we feel it's a very linear progression now from turret through spinal mount, the kind of damage they do. The one thing it did that changes things a little drastically is we had to beef up barbettes. Barbettes really punch hard now for their size, and we tried to kind of make up for that by saying these should only be on military ships. You shouldn't be able to put one on your far trader or something like that.
Gotcha.
And so, and having tested it now and actually run a few games that involve reasonably big ships, I think it works as expected. And you can have a fun naval battle, which the game really wasn't set up for in the past. And I'm hoping that it gets used in that manner for the eventual Fifth Frontier War setting that they're planning on releasing. I hope to see that set of books and adventures use the damage multiple mechanic to help players and referees conduct big old naval battles against between the Imperium, Jordani, Sword Worlds, and Vargr.
Awesome. So the High Guard also includes rules on designing ships. Were there any mechanics or issues from the previous version of High Guard that you fixed as far as designing ships is concerned?
Quite a few. The damage multiples is one of the ones that's incorporated in there. We changed a lot of rules. One thing that didn't seem to work quite right were the ship configurations. Dating back to Classic Traveler, one of the first things you do when designing a ship is you kind of pick its basic shape. Things like a wedge, right? A scout ship is a wedge. You pick whether it's a sphere or a close structure or a dispersed structure. Dispersed structure implying that it's kind of like a bunch of modules linked together. So a streamlined ship like a wedge could do atmospheric reentry, but if you tried to do that with a dispersed structure, your ship would tear apart into little pieces.
Right, it would be like trying to land the space station, the International Space Station.
You're exactly,
right.
Yeah. That thing will burn up like toast. And so we changed some of the modifiers to incentivize designers in either direction. There's a reason you should pick a close structure, and the previous multipliers were, in our opinion, a little disconnected with that. So we modified them to provide appropriate incentives and disincentives to picking your configuration. And then we changed a lot of some of the, and this is no mark on previous writers. Having written books, I know how hard it is to get the language precise and not cause confusion. We tried to clean up anywhere where there was confusion with rules. And sometimes I get it. I got a lot of feedback on it. What's confusing and throughout the book, and where's the language need to be modified so that you aren't confused. And we fixed most of those. Sometimes I realize, it's the spirit. People need to understand the spirit of the rules too. If you have a designer who's just looking for exploits, well, exploits are going to be findable. They're always going to be there. But designers should be, they're not helping their game if they're looking for exploits, right? You want to play within within the rules, but also recognize just because you found a way to create an impervious ship doesn't mean you should. You want to tell a good story. So I fixed some stuff, and some stuff I left as is.
So let's talk about one of your other current projects. Let's talk about the Traveler Far Trader graphic novel. So,
Yeah, very excited to talk about
yeah,
that.
so this is a.
I'm sorry, you go ahead?
No, go on. I was going to say this is a kind of a departure from your traditional RPG supplements. So, how did you approach the process of adapting the Traveler universe into a visual medium, and what was your collaboration with the artist like?
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about that. So, out of the blue, like Matt will reach out to his little core cadre of writers from time to time with a little side project, and he popped in. It must have been over a year ago, where and say, "Are any of you interested in writing a graphic novel?" And I jumped on that so fast that like I wanted to uh, wrest it free from the grip of any of the other writers. Not that if Martin and Gear want to write graphic novels, they can. But I was so eager to have it. I was like a Gollum from Lord of the Rings. This is mine, and jumped on it and said, I want to do this. And Matt was like, great, okay, well, let's put you in touch with Harry Marcos of Marcosia Publishing. It's a British comic book company. And we'll figure it all out. And so I quickly started outlining a story that I wanted to tell. And Matt connected us with, well, initially, Harry had some artists in mind, but to their credit, Matt and Cassie, mostly one of his main editors at Mongoose, had very particular ideas about how the art should look, and they didn't want traditional line art. They wanted it to kind of look like the interior of a traveler book. So they recruited Xavier Bernard, a French artist whose art appears in many traveler books. He did a lot of work in the Mercenary set, and you'll see his work all over the place in the books. If you look in the credits of your various traveler products, you'll see his name appear. So I worked with Xavier, communicating with him over email. He's more comfortable than that than Zoom because he's self-conscious about his English. So we did it that way. And he had never done a graphic novel before, but I'm very familiar with the medium. I've been reading comics since I was like 6 years old. So, and I've read a lot of books about it, such as Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics and Making Comics the Marvel Way. DC put out a great series of books on how to make comics before. So I'm not saying I'm an expert by any stretch, but I've at least done I've done the legwork to understand hopefully what it means to create a graphical story. And so I worked closely with him to look at the script, and we went page by page through the story. And to his credit, he gets it. Like, I mean, he does a lot of the stuff that you have to train a comic book artist for years to get them to eliminate certain tendencies and errors in their work. And Xavier hopped into it like a fish to water. So the first story we did is called Traveler Far Trader. And my approach to these graphic novels with Marcosia has been, let's kind of start with a ship as the basis for the story. Travelers' starships are so iconic. The Far Trader, the Free Trader, the Scout ship, the Safari ship, the Lab ship, etc. Like we talked about earlier. I feel like they are a great starting point, a thematic starting point. So, to me, the Tramp Trader campaign is the bread and butter of Traveler. So I want to start with that. Created a crew that's operating a Far Trader in Aramis subsector, and they've got an objective. They've got I'm not going to spoil the story too much, but they've got a tough job of kind of going across a dangerous area of space and carrying a cargo to a world where, let's see, how can I do this without spoilers? It will have a great effect. The cargo that they bring to this world will affect the well-being and the society of the world to which they bring it. And so that's kind of central to the story. And what I was thinking about was how could a comic story tie in with a role-playing game story. So one of the things I've noticed in a role-playing game session is players will do down and dirty stuff to pay their mortgage, right? To pay their ship mortgage or to make some credits. They'll do stuff that you wouldn't do in real life because they're living vicariously through their characters. And it's actually been a thematic thing with Traveler Forever. Is like you'll do what you got to do to make money and get by. And but I started thinking about that compared with our literature and popular media like Star Wars. There's the part where let's look at Star Wars for example. Han Solo, he just wants to get paid, right, in the first in A New Hope, and then there's that great scene right before the Battle of Yavin where he says, "Yeah, I'm going to leave, kid. You should come with me. You're good in a fight." And Luke's like, "No, we got to fight. We're the rebellion. We got to fight." And he says, "No, I'm going to take my money and leave." So in Traveler, in a game session, maybe Han just leaves and never comes back, right? But in a good narrative, he's got to come back. You've got to do the right thing. And so this comic book story, the first graphic novel, which I should have mentioned. It is a 4-issue miniseries that will be combined into a 96-page graphic novel. Deals with a set of characters that are kind of facing those decisions like you face in the game. I got to pay a mortgage. I got to do what I got to do to keep flying, but it's also a narrative. And so if you read a graphic novel narrative and the characters are scumbag opportunists and mercenaries, I don't know if that really works. So when we combine those two narrative types, what kind of story shall we see? That's what you'll see play out before you in the first graphic novel.
Wow, sounds awesome. I can't wait to check it out.
Yeah. Oh, and I should mention each issue. So it's being released as 4 individual issues before being combined into a graphic novel. Each issue has exclusive gaming content in the back of or after the story of that issue. So the first issue deals with there is this will hint to what as it appears in the story. There is a design for a Vargar Corsair ship in the back, along with descriptions of the Vargar Corsair groups of the of Aramis subsector, and or one in particular, some weapons and an NPC profile. The second issue has a space station. Basically, it's a starport. And eventually, as we get to the last issue, we're going to outline the main character ship, their Far Trader, and it's a unique one, right? It's not just an out of everyone's familiar with the standard layout of the Beowulf class type ship. Theirs is a little different. It's got some unique aspects to it. So and all the characters are described as NPCs, so you can encounter these people as NPCs, the main characters of the story, in your own campaign if you're running in the Spinward Marches, or transport them anywhere else for that matter. And you could see their ship, or even make that ship could be your ship. I don't know. The idea is we wanted to make sure that the graphic novel also appeals to the gaming community, and that they get something special. They get to read a story about their favorite game in the traditional setting, Spinward Marches, but also they get some materials they can actually use in their games in the back.
Love that tie-in. That's awesome. Great idea.
I wish I'd thought of it. Harry, the publisher, said, "And can you produce 6 to 8 pages per issue?" And I thought that was a great idea. I wish I had thought of that, but absolutely I can. So we've been doing that as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. What a creative, great endeavor, and sounds really fun. I can't wait to check it out. So let's talk about your
first issue's done, so it should be coming soon. I'll give you more info once I know.
Fantastic. We'll if it's coming, we'll tag this video down the line whenever it comes out with how to get that. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and I'll give you promo art so you can if you want to show that as well.
That'd be great. That'd be great. So let's talk about your other current or future projects that's been sitting on the back burner. You have a new campaign coming out?
Yeah. So it's got a working title, Singularity, and that will probably tip people's hand, tip the hand that it's about artificial intelligence, or at least that's an aspect of the story.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you tell us a little without giving away spoilers?
Yeah. It's tricky because I don't want to to blow. But it's a big campaign. It's Pirates of Dranak size campaign, or Deep Night Revelation size campaign. Maybe a little less than that. Martin has you going on a 20-year voyage across the galaxy, and that extremely epic campaign. This is, I'd say, more like maybe right in between Pirates and Deep Night in its breadth and coverage. It is centered in core sector, which those of you who are purchasing Mongoose products know that we've put out Third Imperium, a book that kind of gives you an outline of the history and what the Third Imperium setting is all about, but also provides you a playable sector, core sector, which is a vastly different place than the Spinward Marches. Spinward Marches is the frontier, so your adventures are kind of more wild. Something like Firefly or Star Wars could be maybe more Firefly, sort of the Alien series. I don't know, stuff like that could be played better in the Spinward Marches setting. The core sector is more settled, right? There's many more billions of people there, older societies, higher tech on most worlds, more like Dune or Foundation or Coruscant on Star Wars. So it starts there and deals with it is a campaign in 3 acts, and the first act introduces you to the setting and deals with, or has the players serving as the crew of a subsidized luxury liner, and then it proceeds to, you find, well, that in itself is a series of adventures and a trope that I don't think has really been covered in that much detail in the past. You've got the tramp trader type campaign. This would be one of the other main ships in Traveler is the liner. People may be familiar with how it looks and the design, but it hasn't really been explored as a campaign type. So I've tried to convey that. And then it takes a wild turn involving the central, I guess you could say, character that is an artificial intelligence, and you become involved in a galaxy-spanning adventure that delves into some areas that Traveler has not really, in science fiction, that Traveler hasn't really touched on that much in the past, such as transhumanism, robotics, clones, androids. It deals with stuff that hasn't been touched on for many reasons in Traveler. One of them is that Traveler is kind of the Traveler core setting is based largely on the science fiction of the 40s through 70s, in which individual biological beings are making the decisions. We have a lot of characters have a lot of agency and independence to operate in this environment. As science fiction has progressed, we've explored the concepts of consciousness and artificial intelligence, robotic. Do biologicals even have much of a place in a future society? And so this tries to marry the two. This campaign where you've got a setting that has a big fear of artificial intelligence, automatons of various types, with that traditional biological adventurer. And I can't really describe in too much more because I know players are listening in addition to referees, but it reaches an epic scale, and the characters ultimately have to make a big decision about what they want to do with the power and knowledge they've obtained. Do they feel that they could use it for good, or do they feel that they would be releasing some kind of disaster with their decisions? And so it's epic in scope and has the potential to really affect your Traveler setting if you so desire. I don't know. I'm afraid to say too much, but I think people are going to like it, and it's a pretty big departure from previous Traveler material, but also it touches on a lot of the themes the game has always explored.
What was your creative process like when developing the setting, and what challenges did you face?
Well, I read a lot of sci-fi, and I've been really inspired by the work of several authors, and chief among them would be Ian M. Banks and Alistair Reynolds, and more recently Adrian Tchaikovsky, and several others as well. But these 3 in particular come to mind because I've read them the past few years, and they all address transhumanism and artificial intelligence in creative ways in their narratives. And I found it very inspiring, and would love to kind of touch upon those issues in the traditional travel universe without breaking it. And so that was the challenge that that I was facing when putting the story together. And I pitched it to Matt, and I thought he's going to think I'm insane because it's a pretty wild story, but he was very behind it. And then he said, let's talk about this concept with Mark Miller and some of the inner circle people who've been kind of overseeing traveler content for years, and brought it to them. And Mark was very supportive and suggested using various Traveler 5 mechanics to enhance the story. And gave me a lot of great guidance, and we've gone through a couple rounds of discussions about it. He knows kind of the story that we're trying to tell and enable the players to participate in, and I think we've got it heading in a pretty good direction. Yeah, I wish I could say more, but I just don't want to spoil it.
Yeah, no spoilers.
I'm right on the tip of my tongue. There's a key mechanic in it. I'll just say this: you will never see the Imperial Express boat network quite the same after you participate in this campaign. It plays a very central and special role in the story, and I look forward to seeing the reactions and hopefully the great experiences people have with our take on it.
Fantastic. I can't wait. So as the gaming industry continues to evolve, how do you envision the future of Traveler and your role in it?
Well, I mean, I'm sure you know about the open gaming license thing that's come to light, especially after the controversy that was introduced by Hasbro Wizards of the Coast with Dungeons and Dragons. And Mongoose has quickly jumped on to say they're going to support an OGL for Traveler version 2. And I think that's great. I think you make your game much richer by getting more voices involved in it. So I'm pretty excited to see what people come up with. And I hope Mongoose provides people a good toolkit to produce their materials. If you take a look at what's available on Drive-Thru-RPG, and I don't recall the name of it, but there's like a Dungeons and Dragons specific Drive-Thru-RPG. I'm sure people know its name, but it's slipped my mind. Some of the materials they look no different from those published by the actual company. The level of professionalism that's gone into their design and creation just blows my mind. And that's what I hope to see. Usable gaming materials of any type are great, but high production values by independent developers I find really exciting. When people find a way to kind of really take advantage of the tools for desktop publishing that are available and graphics generation, and to produce some really high quality materials for people to use.
How have player preferences and expectations influenced the direction of your product development and your approach to creating new content?
So I referee and play this game a lot. So I kind of get it. I'm always out there, sort of, you could say, in the lab, experiencing what people like and don't like. And as a player, I have discovered that I just like to be part of a great story and have a chance for my character to be like, a character in a sci-fi novel or movie that I've seen, get to have those great lines that they say, have a bunch of laughs with friends. For me, does the narrative look like it'll click with people, and will they come away from it going, that was super fun, and I'll always remember participating in that adventure or that campaign. So for me, that's the main. It's really just about the story. Is it going to be fun? Now, as a referee, I think I probably, even though 95% of my time with Traveler has been as a referee, I think probably my players feel that I torture them, and that's because I love a good narrative, and I've never found narratives where players don't struggle to be very entertaining. So I put them through their paces, and I make things difficult and I want them to. I feel like if it's easy, then it won't be very satisfying. Um, on the other hand, when I'm a player, I find I don't care. I just want to win. I just want to come. So marrying those two and remembering when as a player, remembering, hey, I don't want an unengaging narrative where I don't feel challenged. But as a referee, remembering, all right, take it easy. Yes, you want to tell a good story, but at the same time, remember this is not just a novel or a movie. It's a game.
Mm-hmm.
A game is a little different, right? It's social, and it's when we're playing. I mean, one of the things we'll always joke about is there's actually more entertain. We're a 2 dice 6 game, right? There's often more entertainment when you roll snake eyes than there is when you roll boxcars. The laughter at the failure on a roll will be is sometimes more enjoyable than a great success. Anyway, getting back to your point, you got to consider both perspectives when designing a product. It's got to be fun, but it should also make people come away feeling like they participated in a really engaging and exciting narrative, one that they'll remember that they participated in.
That's a good point. The thing about failing on rolls, sometimes people take that to mean, oh, it's a critical failure and like a gun explodes in your face. But no. It should be more like, the gun slips out of your hand and goes ting, 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 ting down the stairs or something, Okay, it's still around. It
shouldn't be so.
But,
exactly.
nobody, my face didn't explode. And, exactly. I can go get it if I want to put the effort into it, but I really need to keep moving forward. So you kind of put a twist. It doesn't blow up in your face, but it blows up in the plot, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, exactly. It needn't be embarrassing or humiliating when you roll a 2. I think of a time when we're running Pirates of Dranax, and there was a part in the adventures called the Treasure Ship. And I won't drop any spoilers here, but there was a scene where one of the characters had a weapon that you'll find in your central supply catalog book called the Piston Fist. It's this armored fit weapon that you put on your hand, and you could pretty much punch like the Hulk with this thing. You can really deck someone. And one of the characters went through sort of a boarding action scene and was trying to punch out this one of their enemies, and he kept rolling 2s. And that could have been like you break your piston fist, or you punch your own self in the face, something humiliating. And no, I said, you hit the wall and you're right next to his head, and you put this huge dent in the wall, and ultimately it had the same effect. It terrified the NPC. You just didn't get to knock all his teeth out.
Right. Yeah, you can get the same effect.
You didn't succeed at doing what you were trying to do. But let's face it, someone coming at you with a weapon like this is going to be frightening. And I felt like that was a nice way for him not to feel humiliated for what the dice did to him, but just kind of see it as part of the story. That's the way it went.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Well, how could I do that if my dex is so high? Well, your hands are sweaty. Something. I don't know. Doesn't matter.
Exactly.
So I've noticed there's a big influx of new players joining the Traveler community. What advice would you give to those who are just getting started?
Keep on recruiting and try and get people involved that maybe aren't the norm for the game. One of the big things that Mongoose is trying to do is, we recognize that we've got a certain demographic very well equipped and accounted for. It would be nice if we got more women playing the game, and more people from other maybe from various ethnicities and from different like the LGBTQ plus community. It's easy to make a game that is exclusive and shuts out people. And you kind of when we design these products, we've really at Mongoose have really made an effort to try to be inclusive. And if we're not succeeding at that, we hope to hear feedback from fans that are saying, it doesn't feel inviting to me. And because my next question will be, how can we make it more inviting for you? I'd like to see more people playing, and not just those of us who already are playing it, but everyone else as well, because it's I think it's a really fun activity and it brings people together. A lot of laughs, a lot. It's just a great way to spend your time. I'm sure you and I agree on that, Frank.
Yes, yeah, I'd like to see
And
more people playing and more people learning about the game. And hey, what's the worst that can happen? You have more people to play with. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. So to tie down back to your original question, my recommendation would be reach out and take some risks, get some people involved that you normally wouldn't expect to be involved in the game, and then make that game appealing to them. Don't just run the one that's appealing to us old grogs. Find a way to make it interesting for everyone. And I mean, there's a lot of narratives out there that you could run, and you'd be surprised how fun uh, many of them would be for all involved.
are there any aspects of the travel universe that you feel have yet to be fully explored or developed, and that you like to see expanded upon?
So I work primarily on the traditional setting. I'm a total devotee to it. I really love that people homebrew their own games too. I think homebrew is probably half or more of Traveler players, but I love the traditional setting. And one thing I would really like to see is a campaign on the level of you know, again, a Pirates or Dranax to me is always the model to shoot for that features strictly aliens. Um, and or an alien species, a perhaps a Vargr campaign set in the Vargr extents, or an Aslan campaign set in the Higher. I think those two species come to mind first because they're very accessible and easy to play. It's not some of the other species are more challenging. Not that you couldn't do it, but it would be more difficult and would appeal to a smaller audience. Those two are, they're basically wolves and lions, even though they would dispute that if you told them that that's what they resemble. But I think a campaign which gets players to take the role where everyone is playing a member of this species, and in that setting could be pretty fun. It would really challenge people's role playing skills, and uh, I'd like to see something like that done eventually.
Oh, that would be cool. I'm thinking about like a Hiver adventure where you're hired by Hivers to go do Hiver things, and that's how you learn about the Hivers.
Yeah, and manipulation is the key aspect of the Hiver culture. So how is that role played? And how would you all do that? What if you're all hivers and you're all trying to manipulate each other? How does that work as a part of their society?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be another one that could be very fun. And the thing about, and since you mentioned the hivers, they're a federation, and there are a bunch of other alien species living within that federation. The hivers aren't necessarily the majority, but they are the movers and the controllers of it. That could be it. To be a manipulated person and recognize, yeah, I know these guys are pulling my marionette strings, but uh, I have my role in this society too.
Right. Yeah, it'd be interesting. Um,
Hmm.
so let's talk about some current events. What are your thoughts on virtual tabletop? Have you tried it out?
Yeah. So uh, we, my group, we're mostly local in the San Francisco Bay Area, but we've got players. We got a player in Pennsylvania. We've got a player in Wisconsin, and sometimes I play with a guy in Colorado. So we use Zoom or another video type uh, software to see each other and to communicate over that. And we I don't usually use a VTT system, but I think they're awesome. And I understand that Foundry has some great ones for Traveler. I haven't put them to use, but I've seen them demonstrated and they look
Fantasy Grounds
fantastic.
too has a lot of traveler support.
Oh, I'm
Mhm.
sorry, Fantasy
Mhm.
Grounds. Thank you. You corrected me. It's not Foundry.
Okay.
Fantasy Grounds. Yes, yeah, they're like the contracted agency to do that. So I apologize to them for misspeaking. Um, the
Although
uh,
Foundry also
the
has great
one.
support too.
Okay, all
Hmm.
right, good, good. And the one I've used is Roll20 some,
Hmm.
and we put it to great use recently for a Pirates or Dranax adventure, because so Traveler Space Combat is really good when you have it just one ship versus another ship, or maybe two ships versus one. Once you start expanding it to be a couple of small fleets, it gets really unwieldy. And me and my gaming group collaborated with using Roll20 to create a map. It was more like if and some folks may remember Brilliant Lances, a game that was designed in the TNE era of Traveller, and it was pretty good Traveller space combat, but it's very time consuming. Each round takes a long time, and it was the same for us. But we kind of took Traveller space combat and used it as the backbone of our game. But the VTT tabletop enabled us to show the whole thing. We had a planet, the planet was Dranax, and one side was assaulting it, and one side was defending it. And so there was probably 20 ships involved in this battle, somewhere between 15 and 20 ships. And it would not have been possible without a virtual tabletop, and it came out fantastic. I kind of would like to put it together with some optional rules to add to your space combat sessions, and publish it maybe as an addendum to High Guard or something like that. So yeah, we use VTT when it's suitable. Sometimes when a dungeon crawl type adventure happens, like you're going through a deck plan or something, it's nice to drop down a VTT deck plan for people to move through. Get your little character icons and move through there, that sort of thing. So yeah, we put it to use. It's not the main tool. Most of our adventures are theater of the mind, but it's a nice tool to have.
How do you handle when you're doing your Zoom games? How do you handle dice rolling? Is it just honor system?
No, it's sometimes I'll let them. If people are more comfortable using their analog dice, go for it. But I use Discord, and we apply one of the die rollers to it. And I make most of my die rolls on that so that they can't claim that the referee is working against them. But of course, you have your secret die rolls as well.
Yeah, right, of course.
They can't know everything that's going on.
Right.
But a combination of the two. If people like their plastic dice, by all means, roll them. I trust them, and if anyone is cheating, well, I mean, you're kind of just cheating yourself, because if you win all the time, you're not going to be as entertained as if you just really let the random aspect of it take its toll.
Right. Yeah. Good point. So let's talk about AI, the rise of AI. Do you have any do you have any opinions about AI, or either in the real world or within the realm of Traveller? Like, would it be cool to play an AI character, or
Yeah. So the big thing that's everyone's talking about these days was sort of instigated by ChatGPT, which I have found to be a very useful tool for some things. Like if I want to know how to do something that's fairly complex, I just formulate a question and ask, and get a really nice little user guide sent to me by its engine. Have you used it for something like that?
Yeah, I feed it. Well, I've been using a program called Inspiration Pad. And before that, since I'm a programmer, I put a bunch of ideas into like a randomizer, and then I have it spit out stuff Mad Lib style, and then I curate that, and I go, oh, that's a good combination. And then I'll take that and, write that out, or, develop that idea. And I think ChatGPT is like a supercharged version of that. So I can see some applications for it, but I'm not sure if it's going to be, well, at least not in its current phase, able to replace a GM.
No, probably not.
I've gotten it to simulate like a pick your own adventure, kind of like texted. I made a Zork game, kind of a Traveller themed Zork game. That was kind of cool, but it fizzled out pretty fast and ran out of ideas. So I will revisit that, but it doesn't go very. It can't sustain the GM
Yeah, there was a big deal recently about people who make submissions to magazines like Asimov, it's the old science fiction anthology
Hmm.
magazine, and people having Chat GPT write a sci-fi story. But I think the consensus has been that it doesn't do a very good job of writing a compelling narrative yet. Maybe at some point uh,
I see it
they'll
as
have
a useful tool, not an autonomous thing.
Yes, yeah, and people are trying to use it as an autonomous. As far as AI in a game, I think that the possibilities are endless. It's all over the place in culture and science fiction right now. In fact, I use Goodreads to keep track of all the books that I read,
Hmm.
and the first three books I read this year all dealt with artificial intelligence, and those were Version by Alistair Reynolds, Children of Memory by Tchaikovsky, and The Mountain in the Sea, which is a book by his name's Ray Naylor, and I really recommend it. It has to do with octopuses in sort of a near future, somewhat dystopian world. I mean, I'll say no more. AI takes an exploration of artificial intelligence is a big aspect of the story, and all three of those novels, and so many more. It's just such a big topic right now that are coming out. Really make you think about the concept. And highly recommend just going back to Ian Banks' The Culture too. He way ahead of his time explored artificial intelligence, what it would mean for biologicals to be interacting with it. One of his stories called Look to Windward. One part of that story is there's a composer who's creating this a symphony, and he ends up in a conversation with an AI that runs an entire like world. And he says, "Why am I even bothering creating this thing when you could do it just as well, and you could do it in a nanosecond?" And it kind of the AI kind of relates. Nothing that I could do would contain your experience that brought you to this point where you were able to create this symphony. It isn't how fast or how well I could do it. It's who it came from and what it means. At least that was my interpretation of it. So, I mean, there's just so many topics. And as far as playing an AI, why not, right? I think a lot of people love the idea of playing a robot or something like that. One idea I really like for Traveler and for science fiction is the idea which Gear Landeskog, the writer of the Robot Handbook, made possible for us is a ship's avatar. What if an artificial intelligence is running your starship and then you want to go planet side? Well, if you're playing the ship's artificial intelligence, you're like, oh great, okay, go have fun down there, guys. I'll stay in orbit up here. No, have your 3D printer build you a body, and the personality of the ship goes down to the planet or a copy thereof and becomes a character in the story. It's Some of the stuff is a little uncomfortable for some players, some of us to adapt to, but I think it's pretty rich role playing territory if you want to really dive into it.
Very interesting. Yeah, kind of like it's kind of like altered carbon, but with synthetics instead of
Yeah.
humans, like slipping their body.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, a lot of authors have tackled this stuff, and I mean, there was what's his name? Hamilton is his last name. I can't think of the Pandora's Star was the first in a series of books. And in this universe, there basically is no death because you can constantly have your consciousness re downloaded to a new body.
Hmm.
Um, but then there are philosophical questions with that, right? Like, okay, that's a copy of you. Is it really you, though? Sure, it's all your experiences digitized, but it isn't really you, even if that consciousness is aware of everything you've ever experienced in, potentially centuries of life. I don't know. It gets into some interesting ideas, and as far as applying them to a role playing game, I don't see why not. It just depends on how far you want to take it. If you want to keep it traditional, my character, served 4 terms in the military and now he's a mercenary, or or he was in the merchants and runs a far trade. That's great. Those adventures are totally fun. But if you want to push the envelope a bit, transhumanism, artificial intelligence, and other aspects are there for you, and they make for, in my opinion, very interesting role playing game material.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree. It's stuff that is becoming more mainstream. But that now that I was thinking about it, I read a William Gibson story a while back called Eudorou that was about an AI pop star.
Okay.
And that's, I think, on course, Neuromancer that had an AI in it.
I read Neuromancer many years ago. I'd have to reread it to remember a single thing.
Yeah, I was trying to fish back for when any books that I read that had AI characters in them.
Yeah. I remember reading about Eudorou, but I have not read it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Can you share any memorable experiences or stories from your personal travel or RPG sessions that have inspired or influenced the projects you've worked on?
For me, the most ambitious campaign I ever did was a Traveler of the New Era mercenary campaign. I can't believe how into that we were. Me and my group were in our 20s, and I was actually, I was on my way out of role-playing games then because my daughter was born by then, and you quickly realize you gotta you gotta focus on your family. You can't have all these hobbies. But when we were running this thing, the level of detail and effort we put into it wasn't just me too, right? I'm the referee of this thing, and I'm designing mercenary tickets for them. The players in my group were spending time, during the week talking with each other about strategy and building their mercenary company and what they, like really diving into it pretty deeply. Spreadsheets, back it was Microsoft Excel only, I'm sure at that time. To keep track of their finances. It was an amazingly in-depth thing that we still talk about to this day. I tried to replicate it with the new mercenary rules, and I found almost that you kind of you can't go home. We lived that, we did it. It was a lot of fun, but I wasn't able to replicate that same feeling that we did back when we first ran this in-depth mercenary campaign. For me, that would be one that goes down in memory. We're having a lot of fun with the current incarnation of the game, but I don't know. I guess when I think of something like you asked, I go back more in time to long ago when playing this game when I was younger.
You go, wait a minute, this is like a job simulator.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Some players really love that, and you shall go unnamed players from my various groups, but I got a couple of people that I've played with that get so excited when the trade tables come out, or when putting together a spreadsheet to keep track of all our business functions in the game. They love that business simulation aspect of it. And others are like, oh, please, I do this all week. I don't want to do it in my gaming as well.
One of my players is bankrolling the adventure, and he keeps giving advances to the other players, and he's like meticulously keeps track of who owes him. Remember, I bought you that combat suit and then a gun and some ammo, and then I got you that milkshake on Cyrus 3. I mean, just like... He's got like a running total of everything. He's like a Shylock.
Yeah. I'm sure that's very appreciated by the other players in the group. On the positive side, one of these two shall not be named players. He's very shy about the role playing aspect of the game. I think he feels silly when diving into a role. And trying to do the voice or whatever. And I think most gamers probably don't get into it like they're doing an improv session or local theater. They just kind of tell your line and enjoy it that way, and then let the theater of the mind add color to it. But some of us really get into the accent of the character or the behavior and play the role. I know you do, Frank. I've seen it in action. But this particular player is very shy about that. But when you just let him cut loose with the spreadsheets, suddenly I found, because he felt so invested, he started role playing more. And you don't call it out like, haha, caught you, you're role playing now, because then the poor guy will shy back to his corner.
Right.
But the rest of us, when the game session is over, is like, he's really getting into it now, and it's because of that. The gateway drug of the thing that he can relate to, the spreadsheets, the business simulation.
Right.
So whatever it takes to get people to dive in and immerse themselves in the narrative is fine.
For me, it's not so much. I don't want to play Frank in the travel universe. I want to play whatever my character is, and so I'll go.
Yeah.
What's annoying about this person? What's fun about this person? What is a habit that they have that other people might think is weird, or like what I try to make my character pop or like have a little bit of three-dimensionality to it, so that I always know like what, given any kind of situation, what he's going to do. Oh, he's a prude in that respect, or oh, he likes that thing, so he's going to indulge in it, or whatever. And I kind of always want to go back to. I don't want to just make it up as I go. I kind of want to have my characters doing this response based on how he's always been. And sure, characters are going to change over time. And at the end of this year, or when a year from now, when we look back on our characters, my character will have changed. But right now, he's doing all the things that establish his characters, so that other people know what to expect from him, I guess is what I'm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find it takes me time to find my character's voice.
Mm-hmm.
And then I try to settle into that. I never have it clearly in mind when I start. So
Yeah,
I
no.
think they're all Chris at the start,
Right.
and then hopefully they become someone else over time.
Right. If I always go back to Star Trek because I'm a big. I like Star Wars too, but I love Star Trek. And if you look at like Encounter at Farpoint, which is like the first New Generation, everybody was very stiff and weird and kind of not know. They're trying to as their first time as that character. But if you check again in a year or 2 years later, that character is well established and they nail it every time. And they never do anything that's unexpected for that character.
Right. Well, and that's another trap, right? You want to make sure this character has room for growth, instead of becoming a trope or a stereotype.
Right.
Which Star Trek has done a pretty good job of that, both in the original and Next Generation.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree. So, a question I wanted to ask you earlier was, how do you balance staying true to the core elements of Traveler while adapting to the changing landscape of the gaming industry and player expectations?
Right. Yeah. Well, a good friend that you and I share in common gave me some great advice on that. He said, start with what story you want to tell, because he could tell that I was scatterbrained on High Guard and like I was overwhelmed. And it was great advice, because I thought, okay, the main purpose of High Guard is to kind of expand Traveler's starship capabilities to big ships and then more detailed ship options. And so if we're going to talk big ships, what's the combat look like? What's it supposed to be? Because right now the rules have it in this. If when running it through simulations, it was this long hacking away battle of attrition. And I don't think that's the way Traveler combat should, or space combat or big ship combat should run. And it shouldn't run that way for a couple of reasons. One, I think it's got these big guns, right? These the bay weapons and the spinal mounts they're supposed to be like death rays, destructive, powerful. Missile combat. If you unload thousands of, hundreds or even thousands of missiles on your opponent, it's supposed to wreak havoc and just devastate them. So the story I wanted to tell was that big ship encounters are destructive and pretty fast. They meet on the field of battle and then they tear each other to pieces in short order. And so we modified the rules to accommodate that story where they absolutely wreck each other. So, and the reasons for that are because I felt like that was what Classic Traveler was trying to tell. And remembering this is a role-playing game, not a war game. You could spend 5 sessions running a fleet combat encounter and no character would ever have a spoken line in it. And that's not really what you're shooting for. You want to get back to the role-playing, back to the narrative. So it's fun to do these asides with a big battle, but ultimately you want to quickly and expeditiously get back to your story. So that's one of the things that went into the design of those rules. Let's get it back to this.
So do you have like a team of playtesters, or how's the process of playtesting and refining go? How many iterations? For instance, do you just like it's not ready till it's ready, or are you working on a deadline and so you're trying to like get as many playtests in before the deadline, or how does that go?
I wish I could say we play tested more than we do. That's what I'll say. And uh, people get upset when they hear you haven't play tested this or play tested this extensively. We play test the mechanics that we design, but I there just simply isn't time. The writing takes so much time, the editing takes so much time, the process is so difficult that there isn't the time to play test things as much as I would like. Um,
So each
but
iteration is just
fortunately,
super time consuming.
yeah, it's putting these for me it is for putting these projects together. It takes time and a lot of thought and effort. But yes, we do play test. Uh, we sometimes don't explore every single avenue, and then that'll come out when people find a niche somewhere that didn't get explored or doesn't quite mechanically work. I'm happy to say I haven't seen too many egregious ones with the current high guard. People have come back. It's been out for like a year now. People have come back and mentioned certain things that oh, this doesn't work quite right, and I just really, okay, yeah, we could have explained that in more detail. But the base mechanics, which we tested with both play and spreadsheet analyses of how they would work, uh, have ferreted out most of the things that we wanted to see. I would like to run big, detailed play tests with multiple groups if I had the time, but we've got to get these. There's a time pressure to get books out or to get these books out in a timely manner. And this isn't. I'm sorry to say, my only job. I have a day job which is very demanding. This is a freelance activity, and I'm happy to be a part of it. But you know, it wouldn't pay the bills living in Northern California if I made it my only job. So I just don't have the time
Gotcha.
to run the level of play test that I would like to.
All right. What about conventions and connecting with fans? Are there any upcoming conventions or events where fans can meet you, or do you?
I have yet to go to TravelerCon, and I hope to next year. But I'm not a big convention guy. But I hope to do that next year for the first time and get in some games and and experience that.
Yes, that'd be awesome. I've never been myself, but it looks everybody looks like they're having a great fun time. So just nerd out
Yeah,
on
I mean,
Traveler for the weekend. I mean, what?
yeah, exactly.
Sounds awesome to me.
Yeah. hmm hmm
So, for fans who want to stay up to date on your projects, what's the best way to follow you?
Well, I participate on the Traveler Discord forum. The let's see, which one is that? It's the Traveler RPG Discord forum. I'm on the Mongoose Publishing Discord server as well. I try to pay attention to conversations there. I'm on the Mongoose website forums. I'm on Traveler Reddit. I participate, and my ID is usually Paltry Sum, which you'll see pop up all over the place in those things. Um, I'm in the process of creating a blog, but the fact that I'm working so hard on Singularity has disabled me from getting that thing set up. I'm using Jekyll to create a blog for myself, but and I wanted to have it set up before I started heavy work on Singularity, so I could kind of create entries, and if someone wanted to see the progress of and hear stories about how a campaign is developed, I was going to post it there. But hopefully, I get that going soon, and then I'll have more information on that for that next year.
All right, great, great. So, what are your give us a recap of your near term and long term goals for this coming year?
All right, so Singularity is number one, and if all goes well, it has a good chance of being this year's Traveler Kickstarter.
Oh, cool.
I'm yeah, I'm designing it in such a way that there will be stretch goals, things that you could obtain that will add to your running of this campaign. I've talked a bit about it with Matt, and so I'm hoping that it will that it'll fill that role for them this year. More on that as we find out. And then the graphic novel, we're still working on that. It is a laborious process going through each one. I wish that we could produce it like if you're a comic book fan, Marvel and DC put out one a month for Superman and Spider-Man, etc. It is not easy to do that under our current design sequence, but rest assured, we will deliver this complete series. And I've got multiple series involved. That graphic novel series, Far Trader, will progress through a set of 3. The plan is 3 graphic novels. Each one is 4 issues. So ultimately, there will be 12 total issues with this epic story about these characters and their progress through the Spinbird Marches. Then there's a secondary series, and I think I mentioned basing it on the ship. I chose the Trader. The second storyline will probably appear in Deneb or Reft sector and involve a scout ship. I've got another graphic novel partially developed for that. So hopefully over time we'll be delving into that medium as well for Traveler. So after Singularity's out, the next thing on my slate is Jodani Consulate, which is supposed to time with the 5th Frontier War materials that Mongoose is planning to release at some point. I think 2024 is probably when they're shooting for it. Don't quote me on that, or don't hold me down to that. Matt might go, no, Chris, don't say such things. It is in the future, and Jodani Consulate will. The point of it isn't really. So if we're talking 5th Frontier War, as any long-term traveler aficionado knows, the Jodani are one of the enemy in the 5th Frontier War for the Imperium. So we want to provide some more detail about them. However, the tack I'm taking on it is not to show the Jodani in like Kronor subsector. So I'm not depicting the ones right there in the war. I just want to show who these people are. So I'm going to take it back to their home sector, Jdant, and describe what's going on there, and in much the same fashion as I did in Third Imperium. There will be a big long history of the Jordani, developing some things that I've discovered about them since. There have been several materials written about them by various authors over the years. Mongoose version 1 had a nice one that was put out probably over a decade ago. That has additional material. I will add even more to that. And a lot of this has come from conversations with the inner circle and Mr. Mark Miller himself, who gave me more perspectives on the Jordani than I had in the past. So I want it to become a viable role-playing environment. So after we put out Consulate, I hope Matt will support me, and he usually does, in creating Jordani adventures. What's it like to adventure in this psionic-controlled society? I want to make it viable for you to play a prole. People think, well, if you're going to play a Jordani, you have to play one of the psionics. Well, I don't know. Maybe playing a prole is interesting too in its own way. So that Jordani Consulate's the next big thing for me after that. And then going further out than that, I have pitched the beginning of an outline for Empress Wave, which could be sort of a source book / campaign that deals with the Empress Wave. That might come up after Consulate, but that might be looking too far in the future. Suffice it to say, Singularity, Consulate, and then whatever Matt wants to do after that.
Pretty ambitious.
Yeah, there's no shortage of projects. I've pitched, I talked about an Alien campaign. I have pitched, I would like to write an Aslan campaign. So where you're all playing Aslan. So I don't know if that's going to happen or not. It would probably be a little too presumptuous of me to project past Jordani Consulate at this point.
Gotcha. So where can people find these things? I'm guessing at the Mongoose website and...
Yes, mongoosepublishing.com. That's there. Let me see, just taking a look. Yes, mongoosepublishing.com has, all the books I've written, plus those of the other authors like Martin and Gear. and Darren now with the Alien books that he's been writing, and DriveThruRPG.com as well has all the Traveler books, plus some of my. I have 3 books that I wrote, or 3 adventure modules that I wrote for Traveler on there as well, for the Traveler's Aid Society program.
Awesome. Awesome.
Oh, and Marcosia.com.
Oh, right. I was going to say,
is the other one.
I was going to ask where the graphic novel will be distributed.
Yeah, that's it's MARKOSIA.com. That will take you to Marcosia Publishing, run by Harry Marcos, and they've got a lot of good material. If you like comics, check it out. They've got all kinds of different genres, and Traveler will just be joining that fold in the near future. But hopefully, people find some other interesting topics here as well. Just a glance at their website, it's just a rich panoply of stories and material there.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, Chris, we've come to the end of our interview.
Great. It was so fun to do again. This one was a little more freeform than our previous ones. I really had a good time, and thank you for bringing me back, Frank.
Thanks for coming back. I hope you will join us again next year.
Yeah, I will.
Thank you very much. And thank you, dear listener. Until next time, happy traveling.